The first rule: the longer someone tells you something, the less you believe them. It's not them telling you something, it's them selling you something. I gotta make one phone call, he quavered, his head dripping with blood, his eyes wide, not blinking, his body inching closer to my door. I gotta make it to the city. My sister's getting surgery, and I have to be there. I don't know anyone who gets surgery at 1 a.m., I replied, standing firm between the stranger and my front door. The man tried to take another step, and I stepped forward. Where are you coming from? Not many people take this way to the city. My map told me this would be the more fuel-efficient road, he answered. Listen, my sister really needs someone there to support her, and I need to call someone to drive me there. It looks like you need to call the cops about that nasty gash. I can call them myself, if you'd like. A snap came from the woods. It sounded like a small stick breaking. As the stranger's head whipped around, his legs began to quake, and he said, I don't have time to call the police. Her brain surgery starts in about an hour. The second rule: if you don't buy what they're selling, stand firm and start asking the right questions. Didn't you say you had a phone? Why can't you call for a ride yourself? My phone started acting weird when I pulled onto the road, he retorted. Listen, you gotta let me make a call. It will only be 1 minute. Where is your car? I wrecked into a tree, he snapped. Now let me use your phone. Were you driving too fast? I asked patiently. As he turned his head again, I heard the crunch of leaves. Are you alone? Yes, he shouted. You have to let me in, now. The third rule: you have to know when to walk away. This is the most important one to follow, unless you want more trouble. I can't do that, I objected. Why not? He whipped his head toward me, blood dripping from his head wound. As he reached into his pocket, I stepped back and said, I don't let anyone in my house when I hear those noises. F you! He yelled, his fear replaced by anger. He pulled a gun from his pocket and pointed it at me. If you don't let me in, I'll... Just then, footsteps grew louder. A creature with short, stubby legs, a long, crooked torso, and long arms emerged from the woods. Its face was obscured by dark hair. The man turned in horror and fired a shot, but it had no effect on the beast. I started to step back, knowing that anyone it preyed on deserved it. I backed into my house, locking the door, only to hear another shot and then a scream. 1, like I've heard a dozen times at this point. Ashley's heart raced as she stepped into the dimly lit lounge with her girlfriends, the loud music filling the air. After a painful breakup, her friends were determined to help her forget and let loose. As they chatted and giggled, their eyes landed on an alluring man in a blue designer suit, the absence of a tie hinting at his nonchalant charm. Their eyes met, and the girls playfully waved him over. The group introduced themselves one by one until they got to Ashley, and he stopped everyone. He said, "Hold still," and slowly closed the distance. "Do you have green eyes?" Intrigued by his intense interest in her rare green eyes, Ashley's cheeks turned a deep shade of crimson. As the night unfolded, conversations flowed, laughter echoed, and the music gradually faded. The crowd spilled onto the sidewalk, and Ashley's friends exchanged knowing looks, granting their unanimous approval for her to exchange numbers with Michael. Their connection seemed electric, an unexpected bond forming amid the night's revelry. The course of the night took an unforeseen twist when a bouncer casually tossed a key fob to Michael, revealing a sleek Aston Martin convertible parked curbside to the lounge. The powerful purr of the engine and the car's undeniable allure drew the attention of onlookers, including Ashley. As the excitement escalated, Ashley positioned herself by the passenger door. A mix of nerves and anticipation coursed through her veins. Leaning in, she mustered the courage to ask, "When can I expect to see you again?" Michael's enigmatic smile was the prelude to an invitation that she couldn't resist. An invitation to join him for an unforgettable journey through the city streets. She found herself seated in the luxurious car, wind tousling her hair as they sped away. Their connection deepened, revealing shared interests and ambitions. As they navigated the city, Michael suggested a quick detour to check on his boat. Eager for adventure, Ashley agreed. They arrived at a marina warehouse just outside the city limits, where a sense of unease began to creep in. Two imposing figures approached the car, wheeling a wheelchair. Panic surged through Ashley as she questioned Michael about the strangers, but he evaded her gaze. Her screams echoed as she was forcefully pulled from the car and strapped into the wheelchair. Inside the warehouse, an unsettling sight greeted her. People dressed in scrubs, surgical masks, and gloves. The atmosphere felt eerie, like a hidden hospital. She was wheeled into a room where a man in a white coat awaited. The doctor's words sent shivers down her spine, confirming her worst fears. Her eyes widened as the doctor examined her eyes. "We have a real winner here tonight, Michael. Completely undamaged corneal tissue. Your cash payout is with Veronica." As a mask was placed over Ashley's mouth and nose, dread settled in. The doctor's chilling words were the last thing she heard before darkness enveloped her. "Don't worry, Ashley. You'll never see us again." Getting kidnapped is no fun on its own. Getting kidnapped by a guy with a 50s fetish? Hell on fucking earth. It included large dresses and aprons and weird shoes. Henry even wanted me to do my hair accordingly, but I cut it all off instead and told him to go fuck himself. He kept me in a traditional house, except the basement was locked, the windows bolted shut, and the walls soundproof. But I didn't like playing house. I smashed all the plates. I cut holes in his clothes. I attacked him with a pair of scissors, leaving the marble kitchen floor a bloody mess. Henry never let me out. He never laid a hand on me either. Just smiled sadly and then walked away. But the worst day of my life was the day I did finally escape. I had decided to switch strategies, gain his trust. It was easy. I cooked one decent meal, smiled, and he started talking immediately. It was all Daddy's fault, of course. He said his father had two sides. To the outside, he was the perfect husband, and Henry longed for that illusion. For a world where Daddy never laid a hand on his mommy. When he told me this story, Henry smiled at me. I smiled back and brought down the knife. But it was no use. Henry caught my hand midair. My illusion hadn't worked. I gritted my teeth, pulled all my strength. My arm barely moved. "Fuck," I whispered. Henry smiled sadly. "You will never love me." Then he pushed me, and a sharp pain erupted in my head. The last thing I heard before my world went black were his heavy steps moving away from me. They were descending. I was woken up by warmth on my face. Light. The windows were finally open. So was the basement door. I knew going downstairs was a bad idea. I knew it. But I did anyway. I found another house. The same house as ours. Just perfect. Spotless. Except for the woman that lay on the kitchen floor. She was covered in blood. Scars, old and new. The mistakes I made. The punishment I never got. The other side of the coin. I picked up her body and stroked her perfect 50s hair. Her lips formed a smile. "You're okay. You're okay." Why did he? "I never fought," she whispered. "I knew if I did, he'd let it out on you. I don't want to die. Please." She pressed what was left of her hands into mine. "Don't leave." "I won't." And I didn't. I held her as she died on that floor. I never knew her name, never knew her face either. What she looked like before he... well, they couldn't identify her. The world only knows him. I only know him. And I will think about that until the day I die. The black clouds were just rolling into the neighborhood when I first spotted them walking on the street. I had heard there were Jehovah's Witnesses living locally, but this was my first time actually seeing them. I couldn't get a good look at their faces from this distance, but it looked like they were both in their 20s. The sky had opened up after they had visited their first home, and it was absolutely teeming down with rain outside. They ignored the rain and continued going from house to house. The occupants either ignored them or slammed the door in their faces. I began feeling sorry for them and went and boiled the kettle so I could give them a hot chocolate to warm up. The kettle had just finished when I heard the gentle rapping at the door. I rushed over, and before they could even speak, had invited them inside. The street lights illuminated their faces, and I was finding it hard to estimate their age. Their faces lit up, and they quickly hurried inside. I was going to offer them some towels, but to my surprise, their clothes were bone dry. My gaze went out the window to the torrential downpour, and I was mystified as to how they had stayed dry. I led them to the couch and offered them the hot chocolate, but they politely refused. They sat there, smiling at me, and it was really starting to creep me out. One of them pointed to the right at the mirror, and I looked over towards it in confusion for a few moments. My blood ran cold as I realized I was the only one casting a shadow. I turned towards them and saw the elongated incisors as they opened their mouths in a wide grin. I cursed my bad luck for inviting them inside as they slowly advanced towards me and placed their mouths against my throat. Every Monday night, I sit outside in the parking lot where our local AA meetings take place, praying that my daughter might one day walk out. Sam was an intelligent, well-behaved child with a bright future. She could have done wonderful things with her life. Her father died when she was only 16 years old. She shut down, started failing all of her classes, and hanging out with the wrong crowd. I caught her drinking and smoking with them. When she turned 17, she dropped out of school and ran away from home. 6 months later, she returned to the house, telling me she wanted to come home. She smelled like booze and was out of sorts. I accepted her back, though, thinking that she just needed her mother's love to figure things out. After only a month back at the house, I'd come home to find her wasted every day. The last straw was when I found a baggie of painkillers in her drawer. I gave her an ultimatum: go to rehab or leave. She left that night. She's returned a few times, pleading with me to let her live at the house again, promising me that she'd go to rehab. But I'd still come home to find her either drunk or high on who knows what, and have to kick her out. 5 years ago was the last time she came to the house. I'd had enough, and I was ready to call the police if she refused to leave. But then I watched as she grabbed a baby carrier from the back seat. I opened the door to find the most precious little girl sleeping soundly in front of me. Sam begged me to take her daughter until she was back on her feet. I was speechless, and before I knew it, she put Rosie down and took off. Rosie reminds me so much of what Sam used to be. Even at 5, she's so smart and talented. Her future looks so bright. I've not given up looking for Sam. She's called before, asking to talk with Rosie. But when I heard the slurred words on the other side of the line, I hung up. Part of me still thinks that she'll clean up her act and try to be in Rosie's life. Then, tonight, I finally saw her. To my surprise, she looked sober. She really was trying to get her life together. I hurried after her as she entered her car. I didn't know what I was going to say. I decided it was best to say nothing. We met eyes just before I slammed her head into the steering wheel, knocking her out cold. I can't risk Sam coming back into Rosie's life. Not when Rosie's future's so bright. She is my second chance. I'd have to figure out the best way to tell Rosie that her deadbeat mother overdosed. I plunged the needle into her vein and watched until her breathing slowed.